Hey, my name is Rachel. This is Aussie e-commerce mum, a diary. I wanted to share with you today about business expenses and things that I regret having purchased and things that I don't. This is episode number 9. So I was looking around myself today and I was formulating a bit of a plan, a bit of a list of things that I'd maybe like to prioritize purchasing in my business early in the new year being 2023. And then it made me reflect a little bit on what I have spent the last 2 years and deciding whether I thought these things were good purchasing decisions or not so good purchasing decisions, and the things that I just downright regret having spent money on. So this is a bit of a casual chat episode. I encourage you, if you're listening to this, to think about it for your own business or dreams that you have for your business, of what you think might be worth spending money on and things that you maybe have spent money on that you wish you had not. So let's start with the list of things that I regret having spent money on. Looking around me in my office and my study and my craft sort of area, instantly I regret having spent money on some fancy storage baskets. So if you have a storefront or even a nice display area, if you sort of go live on social media often, then absolutely, I'm sure investing in nicer looking storage containers is a great idea. But if you're like me, working from home from your kitchen table or from an office, and if I go live on social media, I'm in a very small section of the house, then these things are pretty unnecessary. And I bought some really nice big wooden crates from Bunnings that I thought would be really amazing to use, but I haven't used them really because they're very heavy and they weren't really fit for what I thought they might be useful for. So I regret having spent money on those. And you know what? Guess what I'm using instead? Cardboard boxes. Because I'm a product-based business, if you're a product-based business, you'll instantly relate to this. I have enough boxes anyway, just arriving at my house with things that I have purchased. I don't need to purchase many extra storage containers. I have plenty of boxes that arrive with things I can repurpose anyway. Another thing I regret having spent money on is probably too much sample stock. I love sample stock. If you have an e-commerce business, how much fun to look for new samples and research new products, which is all great. It's necessary too. Hey, like we don't know what we're going to sell till we're researching and find things. And then depending on our customers and what they love, we then need to find new things and see what suits them. But I got a bit carried away, particularly through last year, and spent far too much on a large quantity of sample stock. So, instead of maybe just grabbing 2 or 3 samples, quantities of each sample that I wanted to check out and try and see what my customers thought, a couple of products I really dived deep into straight off and sort of placed the bet that my customers would love them. And I purchased like 50 units of one thing. And you know what? To be honest, now that one thing is still staring at me from the bookshelf in a box because I haven't even got to the point of taking photos and listing it on my website. And now I've lost a little bit of love with it after nearly a year. So there's just money sitting there that was unnecessarily spent. And that's one regret I have that I'm really trying to be more conscious of now, having thought through this today, that I need to be more aware of how many things I'm buying as sample stock or new stock to try, and just keep maybe a budget to that, or just be way more conscious not to grab dozens of units of one thing just to try it and see. Another thing I regret having spent money on would be a subscription to my website, which is a theme, so a Shopify theme you can buy called Debutify. And I still got Debutify, so I don't regret it entirely. I think what I actually regret is not having kept a closer eye on how much the subscription was costing me. So I got this subscription late 2020. I think perhaps the company was newer then, I'm not sure, because the price was really good. Well, the price was really good then compared to now. So I paid, I think, 3 months in advance for each website, maybe a year at one point in advance, and the price was not bad. But then I realized earlier this year that one of the invoices I paid, because it automatically debits my Visa, was really high, like 3 times higher than what it was normally, which was massive. It was a huge amount. And I just about fell over. I thought, what's happened? And I had to go back through all my records and work out it was simply a price increase. I had increased the price massively. I haven't taken the time to look into something else, but I can tell you why I will be. It's on my list now of priorities for things to check out other themes and maybe purchasing one outright. I'm not sure yet, but for now I still have the Day Beautify theme on my 2 websites, and I changed the plan. Like, I dropped the plan to a different level because the price I was paying was nutso, and I really regretted dropping the ball on that and not keeping a closer eye. And that's really reflective of a lot of businesses, probably financials in general, and definitely mine the last 2 years that I'm trying to get a lot better at, because that's literally the make or break of my business. It decides whether we get to live off this income or not. So it's no good putting your head in the sand about your money and finances with your business. So I'm taking that as a lesson learned for myself as well. The next thing I regret having spent money on is a little bit similar to the Day Beautify theme on Shopify, and that's my MasterCard. I have a MasterCard approved that I've been using for my business, and it's got a terrible interest rate on it, which is actually probably isn't so bad in itself because I'm paying the balance off every couple of weeks, so that's no big deal. But some of the transaction fees are really high. I'm not sure why, but some of the suppliers I purchase from, maybe because they're overseas, it charges a really high fee for me when I purchase stock from my supplier. And it can vary quite a bit, but it looks like sometimes I get charged, $3 up to about $25, which is quite a lot of money. When I did my tax return recently, the fees I calculated from my bank and from that MasterCard over the year were a few $100s, which is just far too high. I don't know that it needs to be that high. It seems unnecessary. So that's another thing I probably regret not having looked into more detail sooner. And on a similar vein, not having set up a credit card with some sort of reward points attached. Even if they seem really minuscule type rewards, are not really that great. Particularly through the business Christmas selling season, when I'm pumping a heap of cash into Facebook to get some really great revenue, I'll be churning like several thousands of dollars through a card every month. So I regret not having looked at that sooner. Have now 2 years into this business, and all the fees maybe I have paid in that time that I possibly didn't need to if I had looked at it earlier. And that's sort of what prompted this episode today, because I have arranged a different credit card now with my existing banking institution. So that's been a win today that I've fixed that, and I feel better about that already. And just one of those things again with finances, to really try not to stick your head in the sand. Sometimes things are easier to solve than we think they might be. And I really did have it sorted in just, filling out an online application for a credit card. And then I had a phone call with a assessor, and then they approved it on the spot. So it really didn't probably take me more than an hour all up to get this sorted. And I feel better about this moving forward now too. My last one I regret buying is another stock related item. I bought some metal binding combs to make some of my own journals here at home with my wire binding machine. I did a video on social media about that. You'll be able to sort of look back through my social media feeds to see it if you like. And I bought 3 different size combs. It's a little bit like Goldilocks. The first one was too big, and then the next one was literally too small. And then the third set of combs I bought was just perfect. So it's just like the nursery rhymes, pretty funny. But again, I bought a box of 100 of each. So I've actually have 2 boxes with 100 combs that are too large and 100 combs that are too small. And I did that because the per unit cost was a lot cheaper for me to buy the box of 100 rather than just, buying a sample pack of half a dozen, which was way more expensive per unit. But do you know what? Now, of course, I've got 2 boxes sitting on the shelf that I'm unlikely to be able to use. And I could have saved, even if not a lot of money, it would have saved me some money by buying a smaller packet. But at least just having wasted those by purchasing 100 units at a time of something I wasn't even sure was going to be the right size till it showed up on my doorstep and I tried it. So that's another stock probably trial lesson that I've learned, is sometimes the smaller quantity is better to start off with, even though you're probably paying 5 or 6 times the per unit cost of buying a larger quantity, because it's a trial. So treat it like a trial. No, you're not going to do it forever. It's just going to be for the interim and save yourself some cash. Now for a few things that I don't regret buying the last 2 years or having spent money on. I don't regret having spent money with Australia Post, but I did also look into a different post supplier just this week to see about swapping to a different supplier, but the type of service they offer, they don't do deliveries around my area, so it's probably not going to work out, which is okay. But I don't regret setting up with Australia Post, and that's just because of the trust factor. Do you know what I think? When you're brand new to business, and this is brand new for me 2 years in, trust is it. It's the thing. Like, people need to find you, but if they don't trust you, they're disappearing again. So I wanted to use Australia Post as my shipping carrier because it's well known, well trusted. They deliver absolutely everywhere. Yes, there have been serious issues since 2020. I certainly have known that for sure and found that out the hard way all through 2020 and a lot into 2021. So they do have their downsides, but I think they're probably still the better of all the options out there at the moment. So I don't regret going with Australia Post, even though they're more expensive probably in some instances. The reliability and trust wins out for me. This one's my favourite. I don't regret having spent money on my new Workbench. I got this Workbench about a month ago and I love it. I wish I'd bought it way sooner, but it's one of those expenses. They're very expensive to buy. I did find one on Amazon that came flat packed. It was under $200 and my husband very graciously put the whole thing together for me and then bought some cheap caster wheels from Cheapest Chips and added them to the bottom as well. And I love that. I just love this Workbench. I use it every day. It has saved my back. Oh, my back was so sore from leaning over my desk and packing orders for the last year and a half. Well, nearly 2 years. I've only had the Workbench for like 6 weeks. But I should have bought that from the beginning. I wish I'd splashed out the $200 earlier on and got this. It's one of those things you don't want to have to find the money because you make do. But you know what? Sometimes making do causes other problems. And this Workbench is definitely an example of that. Having worked at my desk and not have a bench, it has absolutely caused me other issues, particularly with my shoulders and my neck, my upper back, and packaging orders and things like that. I wish I had done this way sooner. Another thing I don't regret having spent money on is generic shipping boxes. There are so many beautiful packaging options out there, like so many of them. They're really lovely and colourful and beautiful, but pricey, I think. I love a clean white box. I think things look great when they show up in a box. It's just white and it's the most economical way to post items. So I don't regret having spent money on buying flat packed white boxes in bulk. And I also have envelopes that I have bought in bulk as well. And I don't regret having spent money on those. This is a little bit similar. I don't regret saving money on shredded paper. I shred my own paper for packaging. So I use a shredder and I've been using all my own shredded paper. So I haven't been purchasing any shredded paper for any orders for 2 years and I will continue to do that. Now I think that I do it myself and it's easy as to grab paper that's recycled or, you know, shopping bags that are paper and all sorts of stuff, packaging that rocks up in my doorstep from suppliers that I shred. I definitely would stick with keep shredding my own paper for using as packaging fill and I don't plan to buy any of that sort of stuff anytime soon. This is a really little thing I don't regret having spent money on. It was $3 from my local post office and it's a calendar for next year. It's one of those just regular hang up on the wall monthly calendars with beautiful pictures of the beach on each page or each month. And they've got ones that you can get with dogs and cats and all sorts of cute calendars. They're cheap enough to get. But I don't regret having spent money on that and I think it's going to be worth its money like 100 times over. It's going to be my visual reminder and my visual goal for revenue. When I used to sell with a direct selling company years ago when my kids were littler, I did really well with a revenue goal and a target. And I was able to hit that target 4 quarters in a row, which got me to being one of the top 12 consultants for revenue in the country. And it's because I do well, I believe, visually. Having revenue up in front of me, I can mark down a revenue each day that comes in, see a pattern over the week, or maybe set a goal through the week and just look at it. The visual reminder of a month to a view, which I love that idea. I think it really just works with my brain. So that $3 calendar, I know I won't regret having spent money on that because I will be able to mark on that every day how much revenue comes in. And if there's too many days where it's zero, I'll be able to do something about that. It'll be a visual reminder for me to stop and take stock and get focused back on what's really important, because that will be an indicator to me that perhaps my priorities have got out of whack, my time has got hijacked, or something like that, where my main goal and focus needs to be making sales. It's an e-commerce business. I sell products. That's what I do. That is it's called my singular activity, which Mike Michalowicz talks about. He's an incredible author for small businesses. I follow the profit first budgeting method that he has, that I have been doing for a few months to try and get some profitability into my business. But anywho, apart from that, he talks about a business's singular activity. It needs to be what it is that you're known for and that keeps you even in existence. For me, that's selling products. So this calendar is going to be great. I'm already looking forward to using it and starting to fill it out from month to month. Finally, my biggest one would be Facebook ads. And this is totally controversial. Some people, if you're hearing this now, might be switching off already and deciding this is not for you at all. But I want to encourage you to consider Facebook ads. They are absolutely a specialized area. I can say that now, having spent many hundreds of hours in 2 years learning them and getting pretty darn good at them, that they are definitely a specialist area, but it's not out of the reach of small business. And the eyes and visibility on my business that Facebook and Instagram advertising has given me is second to none. I would rather spend the money on Facebook and Instagram to give me product market fit, to validate my product, my idea, my offer, find me the audience, find me the customers, than to start the organic strategy and go down that road over, I'm not sure, but I would think significantly longer. You often pay in life one way or the other. You either pay for things in time and you save yourself some money, or you pay for things with money and you save yourself some time. So I would do Facebook ads again if I started another business, which I guess this podcast kind of is its own little startup of something. So I would use Facebook ads again, undoubtedly, and I think it's well worth the investment if you know what you're doing, if you know what resources to look for and what advice to get. And that's a whole industry in and of itself. So not something I would ever start to try and unwrap and unpack for you here. But just to say that that's something I don't regret. That's probably my top thing for sure, but I wanted to leave it to the end. That's my number one thing. I don't regret having spent money on that one bit, not at all. Thanks for joining me for this time, a little impromptu chat of some things I was thinking about today that's helped me prioritize some of my goals for next year, which by the time you probably listen to this episode, it might be very close to next year anyway, regarding finances and expenses and what it is I want to spend money on and look into, and what it is I think in looking back I regret having spent it, but more importantly, why I regret having spent it. So if you're looking into things that you've spent money on previously and you identify a couple of things, make sure you identify why you regret it. Otherwise, you'll probably just do it again and with something different. So have a look at your expenses and what you spent money on, what you regret, maybe what you don't regret, so that you can lean more heavily into that area, and the things that you definitely don't want to do again. So thanks for hanging out with me on this episode. This podcast is as much a therapeutic brain download for me as I hope it's an encouragement for you as we spent this time together. Head to my website and you can join my newsletter or send me an email. That would be so interesting from this episode. It'd be great to hear from you with things that you regret having purchased in your business and things you don't regret having purchased. My website is Aussie, eCommerce.